Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing here. And I've got another combination out here today that I picked up recently that we haven't tried yet. We've tried some of the competing shells to this, and some definitely perform better than others, so I'm curious to see how this one does in the mix of the whole thing. So for the load I've got out here today, I've got some of these guys, the Remington buckshot shells. These are a 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 9 pellet double-aught buck load, and it says it wants to go 1325 feet per second. And it does also suggest, which you probably won't be able to see, but right down here on the bottom, it does say that typically you get the best results through a full choke, which that's usually what I use anyway when it comes to buckshot like this. So with that being said, the setup I've got out here today is my Remington 1187 Premier with the stock full choke in the gun, which is typically what I use when I run buckshot through this setup. And it has definitely shown some pretty good patterns with buckshot. So that's what we're sticking with today, same as usual. So we've tested the Federals and the Winchesters, but we have not tested these Remingtons yet. So I'm curious to see how they perform kind of in comparison to some of the other competing loads through this. So the testing is going to be the same as usual. I have the normal 36 by 36 paper down there with my point of aim marked with the white dot. I do also have the chronograph, so we'll see how close we get to the 1325 that's on the box. So I'll head up and take the shot. I'll let you guys watch the chronograph since you really won't be able to see anything impact the target yet. And then after we glance at what kind of speed we have, we'll go down, and I do also have some templates that we can lay up on this target, and we'll get some reference points to see how well these loads actually did. So let's head up here and shoot them, and let's see what we can get out of the Remingtons this time. Okay, so that round gave us 1345 through the chrono. Remember, the box was claiming 1325, so we're 20 feet per second above the box claim. But we do have a pretty long field barrel on that gun, so it makes sense to be right about where we're at. So definitely pretty much right on the money as far as velocity goes. But how did they actually shoot down range? Let's go take a look and see. Alright, so now we're down at our 40-yard paper here, and this is what we got here. And I gotta say, this is pretty interesting. So obviously the white dot was my point of aim, and we did have one pellet right in there. But just look at this pattern right here. That's 40 yards through a full choke with 9 pellet double-aught buck, and you see all 9 pellets right there. And that gave us a total at 40 yards of an 18.5 inch spread. Now, if you have not seen the Federal Flight Control buckshot test that we just did, I highly suggest you go check that out. I'll leave the card here for it. But without giving away too much, this is not a flight control load, and the flight control buckshot has got some serious competition. I'll just say that. So before I even put any of the templates up, I am definitely impressed with that kind of performance right there. But speaking of which, let's start out with a 10-inch circle and put that up and see how many of those pellets were within that 10-inch circle. Okay, so here's our 10-inch circle, and if we line that up with my point of aim, that gave us 5 pellets within a 10-inch circle there. That's over 50% of this load in a 10-inch circle. So that is definitely pretty good sign right there. Now normally I would go ahead and throw a 30-inch circle template up here, but I mean 18.5 inches, all of that is going to be well within a 30-inch circle. So there's not even really any point to looking at anything larger than a 10-inch circle on this one. But how would it have done if you would have taken this shot on something like a deer? I do have a deer template, so let's throw that up there and see what it looks like. Alright, so now we got our deer template up here, and let's take a look and see what we got. Now for reference, we have his front leg down here, and his neck is just starting off to the right hand side. So if we put our point of aim right about where we would want it to be there, we have all 9 of these pellets out of this shell that hit this deer here. We have one that did hit front leg down there, and one that might have clipped some spine or something up there at the top. But just look here at this group right in the vitals. 7 out of the 9 were all within that definitely vital area right there. So we have an absolutely guaranteed dead deer on that shot. There's no question about that. That is some pretty good looking performance right there. Now, just for the sake of it, I'm also going to put the hog template up here. Although, just looking at this, we already know we have a dead hog. But just for the people that want to see it, I'll go ahead and throw that up here and just see how many pellets we had within that one. Okay, so now we've got our hog template up here, and it's same orientation as the deer and pretty much the same story too. I mean, if we put our point of aim right about where we'd want it to be, we have all 9 of the pellets on this hog here. Absolutely a dead hog. So we are absolutely looking like a great performing shell here. There's no question about that. Good pellet count, good pattern density, and definitely a lethal pattern flying down range for a hunting scenario. There's no doubt about that. All right, and I know this is not a turkey load or waterfowl load, but here is the wad out of that shell. Not very common that you see wads with buckshot, except for like the federal flight control stuff. And this is definitely a pretty interesting looking one. We have these little raised portions on the inside of the petals here to stiffen it up a little bit, I do believe. But everything looks good here, except this one tiny little crinkle in this petal, but everything looks okay. And I even had to go double check myself on the box. But I mean, as you can see here, all it says is that they're Remington power packed loads, but nothing about wads in here at all. So this wad absolutely came as a surprise to me. I didn't expect it there, and it's clearly not a flight control wad, but Remington should do a better job advertising it if this wad is what's making that good of a pattern. But either way, definitely something surprising and definitely something that's interesting to see here. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that performance? I gotta be honest, I didn't really expect that. I mean, even the box didn't tell me anything about there being a wad or anything like that. It just said buffer material. And from the few other Remington buckshot loads I've shot over the years, I don't ever remember there being any kind of a wad in there. So that came as a pretty pleasant surprise, to be honest with you. I mean, that right there is seriously giving the flight control stuff from Federal a run for its money. There's no doubt about that. And I think it's cheaper too. I really don't have any complaints at all about that performance. That is absolutely a great buckshot pattern all the way down at 40 yards. But at the end of the day, what do you guys think about it? Is that what you expected to see, or were you a little bit surprised? Leave your thoughts in the comments and let me know what you think. But with that being said, we also have an Instagram now as well, where you can see little sneak peeks and stuff of what we're testing and sometimes how they perform ahead of time. So if you would like to go check that Instagram out, it'll be in the description below. But I've got a few more tests I want to run for you guys, so I'm going to jump back to it. So I'll see y'all in the next one.